Welcome back. When we left off, our brave, well, I really want to say brave, but I'm not sure that applies. Anyway, our brave adventurers were in Burkton, the Wood Elf village. They had gone to the blacksmith, and they busted down the door. Inside, three of our adventurers noticed the fourth adventurer, who was a giant half-snake demon thing, and it was performing a ritual. As they watched, plate armor melted down, becoming liquid. It crawled upon the beast, forming around it, becoming its own personal demonic armor. Well, our rogue and knight looked upon with bravery and made a tactical retreat to the tavern and spent the rest of the time drinking because the players failed to show up. So, we're left with our freaky demon thing and a barbarian. So they venture on into the woods to face the beast that they had learned about. Partway in, the demon snake noticed that the trees looked similar. Upon noticing this, a wood elf from the village approaches them and warns them that the trees are actually alive, and the wood elves work with them to gather the wood that they sell. So, they find tracks from this large beast, and they follow them to a cave. At the entrance of the cave are two sleeping bears. They sneak closer and begin to quickly dispatch the bears, slaughtering them. Now, if you're squeamish, you may want to skip this part, because this six-armed female with this giant tail of a snake is apparently a torturer from hell that then kept the bear alive but broke its knee, then cut off one paw, then the other, then it began skinning it alive, attempting to perfect her skills in torture. She tried to pierce the beast, but killed it on accident. They proceed deeper into the cave. Further in, they find a deformed creature. Unfortunately, our human barbarian traveled forth but was not paying enough attention, as a morning star hit him, knocking him across the room to the wall. The heroes sprung into action as they faced an ogre, but not just any ogre, a zombified monstrosity. After a long and gruesome battle, this demon snake swung and decapitated the beast. Upon exiting, they found that all the trees had changed their formation. There were two rows forming a wall on each side that showed them a path directly back to town. For the trees were glad that the beast had been removed. They continue on, and we keep flipping pages till we find what we're looking for. They inevitably reach the town of Mirkwell. Now this town is special because all the other surrounding villages do not have prisons. They all capture their criminals, no matter the crime. Petty theft to straight up murder. All the criminals are sent to Mirkwell, a prison city. The giant wall for keeping things in. Once there, they speak with the guards and find that the guards do not care what goes on beyond the wall. They only care about keeping the prisoners from escaping. So, our two adventurers are given a special token, a blue ribbon, of which they are able to present to leave when they are ready. The gate is opened and they are let in. Well, a barbarian, a mighty intelligent human, decides the only logical place to keep such an important item is in her mouth. They proceed on and see tents and a few scattered prisoners. They see a single metal building and a well. The well is right next to the building. In this town of Mirkwell, he who controls the well controls the town. The prisoners had been attempting to get a functioning forge to build weapons of which they could use to defend themselves against the guards and escape. So, as they approach, the barbarian wishes to take a drink from the well. A large creature, a large male human exits from the metal building, telling them to back away from his well. After some dialogue that led to an angered well master, every other prisoner began to surround them. Combat ensued between the giant demon snake and the well master. After just a few mighty blows, the well master was split in half, each half falling to the side. All the other prisoners were terrified of the beast and did not wish to pursue into combat. During their dialogue, they learned that there was a forge being built to the side of the building. Well, of course, the snake decided to perform some intimidation to recruit followers into her cult. They then worked on the forge to get it functioning. The demon snake hands all the prisoners a single book of which they are to study, while she works on the well. Meanwhile, the barbarian, having drunk from the well, proceeds to investigate the metal building. Inside, she finds a perfectly functioning forge already in existence, along with a guard uniform, because apparently the prisoners were close to making their escape. But the guards knew, so one of them had to infiltrate and keep the forge's existence a secret. They killed that guard. After several weeks, they dismantled the metal building and all the tents and used it to create weapons and shields and some armor. They used the leather from the tents for armor, the tent poles to make wooden shields, and melted down the metal to make weapons. Finally, they were ready to leave, to force their way out, fighting off the guards. However, as they approach the gate, they find it immediately opens. The guard steps forward and informs them that they had not seen such discipline and cooperation among any of the prisoners. If the guild was willing to take responsibility for the actions of the prisoners, then they were free to have them. So they took the prisoners, who were now guild members, back to the guild. Once they arrive, immediately the demon snake has already been informed of tunnels connected to the basement. She takes her cultist and proceeds down into the tunnels and begins placing torches and telling her followers to continue studying. The guild master, the barbarian, spoke with the others and found that they had completed the gate around their watermelon patch. But they were attacked by bandits, and all of their food supply had been taken. One of the guild members had searched around and set up a donation bowl by the entrance. Unfortunately, everything had been stolen out of it as well by the bandits. All that they knew were the bandits came from the east. Luckily, one of them dropped a map of the area of which they could then go there to search for the bandits. Of course, our demon snake had to have some fun terrifying all the other members. And after some time, they finally proceeded on. As they continue, they look off into the distance and see thunderclouds. Giant storm clouds covering the sky. They proceeded on to what is marked on their map as Rental Town. Once inside Rental Town, they meet the owner of the town, a man by the name of Fred. He informs them that they should spend their money or even rent a place, which they did not wish to rent. The entire town was for rent. All you had to do was have enough money to afford a space. Of course, the physical buildings cost more, and there were cheap spaces that had just areas you could set up your own table. There were a few stalls that were in the middle of the price range. Well, they looked around, and the first building was, of course, Fred's house. The other buildings, they noticed one thing in common. Every single building had the words "The Guild" before what the building was. There was "The Guild Recruitment," "The Guild Weapons and Armor," "The Guild Tavern," "The Guild Library," and Max's Pet Shop. But of course, any brave adventurer's first stop, the tavern. They approach and see two men standing outside the tavern. The barbarian tells them that he is a member of the guild and should be let right in. Unfortunately, the snake is not so lucky. These men only allow guild members to enter. Anyone else, it is a 50 gold cover fee. Well, the barbarian waits inside for her companion. Outside, battle ensues. The two guards fight to the death, as they were taught in their training. Once they lay dead, the demon enters the tavern, joining her companion. They sit down and have their drinks. Well, the barbarian is apparently not an alcoholic, so they bring her a very special drink. She consumes it, but tastes a tiny hint of alcohol. She immediately forces herself to vomit it all up. Looking around, she notices that the tavern that only had around 10 people when they entered now had close to 40. She stood up and stumbled outside, noticing that the streets were packed. Meanwhile, the demon snake approaches the bartender, demands the barmaid, and then orders a very specific drink. He enjoys it with no negative effects because he knew what he was ordering. He then proceeds outside and goes to do some shopping. She proceeds outside. I'm fully aware I keep making that simple mistake. So, the demon snake is off shopping, buying supplies, and mining equipment to further the tunnels. Meanwhile, the barbarian is stumbling around in the crowded street trying to figure out what's real and what isn't. She asks her companion for help, who then swings her weapon through the street as she sees nothing out there but the two of them. The barbarian witnesses several people being knocked to the ground. Everyone else begins screaming and running. Those that are hit stand up covered in blood and scream and continue to run. The snake proceeds with her shopping, not giving it another thought. Meanwhile, the barbarian has no clue what's real and what isn't, trying to figure out if she's gone mad or not. During this intoxicated confusion, she sees 5 ogres enter the town, looking extremely angry. She runs forth, swings her weapon, but misses due to the intoxication. The ogre swings his mighty club, and the barbarian rolls to the side and moves away from them. She's still uncertain of what is real and what isn't. The barbarians proceed further down the street. As she continues wondering what is real and what isn't, she charges at them, runs into one of them, and falls back. For a brief moment, she looks and sees what looks like Fred going towards his house. She then stands up and moves away again, screaming for her friend to come help. Once there, she asks her companion if the threat is real or not. Her companion, seeing a chance to have some joy and amusement from all of this, tells her, yes, there are 5 ogres there, and they're selling banana bread. The barbarian takes a look, and suddenly all the 5 ogres have pouches on them containing banana bread. She approaches and speaks to them, and they say that they are selling banana bread for 10 gold a loaf. The demon snake watches as the barbarian takes out 10 gold, sticks it straight out in front of her, and drops it on the ground, then takes air and begins consuming the nothingness. A little while later, she lays down in the middle of the road, believing it to be off the side out of the way, to attempt sleeping off the intoxication. She awakes some time later, finding that what was left of her banana bread was gone. She attempts to go towards the library. And of course, 2 men stand out front of the guild library. And they say, well, we saw you go into the tavern, so you must be a guild member. Go on in. So the barbarian proceeds inside to do a little light reading. The demon snake proceeds to the guild weapons and armor. The men standing out front say there's a 50 gold piece entry fee for non-guild members. After some time, she convinces them that she's a guild member, but only for a moment, because she whispers as she enters that she is surprised how that worked, and that they didn't notice her beating up and killing those 2 men outside the tavern. This limited her time, as they begin wondering if she was really a guild member. Inside, she purchases mining supplies for all of her cultists, and exits. She goes to the guild library, where there are 2 men standing out front, and they say, we saw you go into the weapons and armor, so you must be a guild member. Go on in. No one seems to notice, or just don't care, that 2 men were slaughtered outside the tavern. So they finally leave, and they go further down to a wonderful shipping town, Pittman. Ah yes, Pittman, an orcish trade distribution location. There they find that it is almost nightfall. There's a warehouse, sleeping quarters, and a location for the horses, a stable. They see a drunk orc outside urinating. They approach him and question him about the bandits, learning very little other than that they come from the north. The demon snake, wishing to perfect her torture skills, grabs the man, takes him over to a horse stall, and releases one of them so that one of the stalls is empty. Ties the man up inside and begins torturing him, ripping off several parts and cutting other parts, leaving the man there, barely alive. He is still unable to give them any more information. The barbarian approaches and mercy kills the man. They go and break down the door to the warehouse. They enter and climb up into the rafters, attempting to hide there, in hopes that the bandits would soon come. Night came and went. The bandits never showed. A few more orcs enter the building, and one by one they are each slaughtered. They find the barbarian and the blood on him, and as they try and confiscate the weapon to see what happened, what the connection was between that weapon and their dead friend, the barbarian attacks, refusing to lose his weapon. The other two that had entered fled, screaming about the bandits being back. The barbarian attempted to sneak out, but failed. She responded with running all the way back to the guild. Then, a total of 12 orcs that were at the location at Pittman were each one by one slaughtered by the demon snake in horrible, gruesome ways, being hung up by each other's intestines until there were only 2 left, who had a slight glimpse of the beast and were running, terrified to find help. The demon snake proceeded back to the guild hall, of which they had renamed the guild Funky Town. Back there they did some minor construction, having beds built. They had a very important hanging noose placed outside so that they could hang people. So, as our story reaches its conclusion for now, the guild has currently been renamed to Funky Town. They now have beds, a donation pot, a watermelon field, which is still growing and has not yet produced anything. The tunnels have been made use for the cult, and the guild now has 14 followers. It will be 2 weeks before we convene again So, enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to let me know if you've enjoyed these tales of guild construction and demonic torture. Okay, bye.